Since mirrorless cameras became available a few years ago, we have been able to take advantage of all those vintage lenses out there by using adapters. I'm going to talk about my 3 favorite reasons to use vintage lenses, so stick with me. All right, let's start off with what is a vintage lens? Well, definitions may vary between different people, but to me, a vintage lens is any lens that was made for an old film camera. These lenses come in all kinds of different formats, 35 millimeter, medium format, 4x5, and so many more. With the use of adapters, we can adapt these to our modern digital cameras across all different kinds of platforms and not have to worry about the format nearly as much. These vintage lenses are generally manual, so you will have to focus them yourself, and typically you'll change the aperture yourself as well. Well, enough about the history, so let's get into the reasons why we should use them today on our digital cameras. The first reason to use vintage lenses on your modern digital camera is that vintage look. Manufacturing wasn't always as precise as what it is today, and manufacturers didn't have the same coatings that they have today as well. So a lot of vintage lenses have very unique looks to them. This can be seen in a lot of different lenses, like the Helios 44, for instance, and the bokeh that it produces. If you are trying to make something your own and make it unique, a vintage lens with that vintage look can really go a long way to helping you. All right, my second favorite reason to use vintage lenses is the lens size. So these lenses can be very small. Here I have a Canon FD 1.8, and you can see how small this lens is. It's super lightweight, and this is because all of these vintage lenses don't have any electronics in them, and they don't have image stabilization, and they don't have all these things that make our modern lenses much bigger. If you're going to a place and you're going to be carrying your camera and lens all day, maybe a vintage lens is right for you. Or if you're going someplace that's super busy and you want to be a little stealthy, you don't want to draw attention to you, consider using a vintage lens with a small digital camera, and that will help you blend in and get images that you otherwise might not be able to get. The third reason I like to use vintage glass is the price. So a lot of these lenses can be had on a very small budget. You might even be able to find some in your parents' or grandparents' basement in a box. A lot of people had these lenses because they had cameras and they didn't know what to do with them, so you might find them stashed away. The specialty and rare lenses that were made years ago are far and few in between, so they can get kind of costly. But there are a lot of opportunities to get vintage lenses for less than $100. This is a great opportunity to be able to create something with an old vintage lens that will help you make your images unique and yours alone. All right, as a bonus, I'm going to talk about being careful. So a lot of these vintage lenses produce amazing images and they're awesome, but be careful. Buy from reputable dealers that deal with vintage lenses. For one example, vintage lenses are common. It's common to have fungus, and you do not want to get a lens, even if it's been cleaned, that has fungus and put it on your new modern digital camera and then get fungus in your camera. So again, be careful when you go out and buy these lenses. If it sounds too good to be true for the price, always make sure that you do your homework and make sure that you're getting exactly what you expect to get. Vintage looks, smaller lenses, great budget. These are all great reasons to try out vintage lenses. These will produce amazing, unique images that you can make yours. I hope that you have been able to take something away from this, and I hope that I've convinced you to go try and use a vintage lens with your mirrorless camera. If you like this content, don't forget to hit the thumbs up below. And if you want to see more content, hit the subscribe button. For those of you that have used vintage lenses in the past, leave me a comment. I'd like to know which lenses you've used and which ones you really like, or maybe you have some on your wish list. Either way, let me hear about it in the comments. And until next time, enjoy your photography journey.